Hello there, good evening and welcome. This is Abuja Dispatch, a program that we specially dedicate to bring to your living rooms those events and issues, and indeed those characters that have shaped the entire landscape of the federal capital city, Abuja, in the last 7 days. Adegboyega Arogbodo is my name. Let's start off with those stories that made up our news headlines in the outgoing week.
President Muhammadu Buhari joined other world leaders to attend the opening of the general debate of the 76th session of the General Assembly at the United Nations headquarters Tuesday in New York. The president was accompanied by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyeama, permanent representative of Nigeria to the United Nations, Professor Tijani Mohammed Bande, and the head of Chancery of the Permanent Mission, Muyiwa Onifade. No fewer than 80 heads of state are expected to attend the general debate in person in New York, while others spoke through pre-recorded videos. President Muhammadu Buhari presented Nigeria's statement to the General Assembly on Friday. Mr. President's speech, which delved on key issues of priority like development, climate change, security, women empowerment, good governance, anti-corruption, illicit financial flows, and restitution. The theme for this year's United Nations General Assembly is Building Resilience Through Hope. To recover from COVID-19, rebuild sustainably, respond to the needs of the planet, respect the rights of people, and revitalize the United Nations. President Muhammadu Buhari has met with the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, at the sidelines of the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. The discussions between the duo centered on getting manufacturers of vaccines to invest in production in Nigeria and Africa at large and help economies recover faster. Iweala said the inequality in accessing vaccines among nations of the world is unacceptable, as only 4% vaccination has been achieved in African countries, while 58% is being recorded in rich nations. The WTO DG further applauded President Buhari's leadership and interventions in the health sector towards attracting the needed investment to the country, particularly in vaccine production.
Page 2164.
The Senate has approved the 2022 to 2024 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. President Muhammadu Buhari had in July forwarded the 2022 to 2024 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper to the National Assembly for approval. In approving it on Wednesday, the Senate maintained the crude oil benchmark price of $57 per barrel for 2022 as proposed by President Muhammadu Buhari, higher than the corresponding benchmark of $40 for 2021. The Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola SAN, has called on the people affected by the ongoing road construction project in Nasarawa and Benue states to embrace dialogue and peaceful engagement towards resolving issues related to compensation rather than seeking recourse to agitations. While speaking on the efforts of the federal government to compensate those affected by the project along the road, Fashola said that the federal government was closely working with the Benue and Nasarawa states to resolve the issues.
Thanks for staying with us. The provision of affordable and decent housing for Nigeria has been a top priority for successive governments since the nation's independence in 1960. Regrettably, for more than 5 decades, Nigeria is yet to develop an effective and workable housing policy that will enable the country to achieve the goals of its Housing for All policy. Bridging the gaps of housing deficits is the focus of our discourse tonight on Dateline. Join us again.
In every economy, providing affordable housing is a strategic national imperative to guarantee the well-being and productivity of the populace. As at 1991, when the National Housing Policy was promulgated, Nigeria was said to have a housing deficit of 7 million units. For close to a decade now, the figure has been put at 17 million, thus putting into question the reliability of these statistics. Sadly too, this also applies to the states and local governments. This phenomenon has given rise to unprecedented urbanization resulting from high rural-urban migration, which has created large demand for affordable housing and has given rise to slum population in the urban areas and inadequate infrastructural facilities in the rural settings.
If you look at the policy of the last administration of Jonathan, particularly Abuja, they really approved a lot of estates, private estates, to many people. Today, houses are there, no occupant. In Abuja alone, you have a lot of the houses that are in Abuja are more than the population of the people that are really living in Abuja. When Mr. President came on board, we thought he's going to use welfareist system to first of all take care of the poor. There is always a way where the rich can take care of himself.
The National Housing Program of the present administration demonstrates a clear commitment and decisive intervention by the federal government to make significant and lasting changes to the sector through the construction of houses in all the states of the Federation under the supervision of the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing on a continuous basis. However, what is obvious is that the deficit in housing requirement is unacceptably high, despite the various policies and strategies adopted by the federal government aimed at combating the housing problems of the citizenry. Not much has been accomplished.
Each of those housing constructions, the minimum number of workers you see there is 1,000. Some are 1,900, some are 1,600. So those are people for whom, first of all, the president has hit the bullseye. Not only in what they say in appreciation, but in the objective of ensuring that the most vulnerable people, plumbers, carpenters, masons, welders, electricians, can go back to work.
One major problem that had stood against the delivery of adequate housing in the country was the challenge with land ownership. The bureaucracies involved in land acquisition and perfection title poses a considerable difficulty to effective housing delivery, especially in most urban areas. Challenges faced in land accessibility include affordability, availability, and ease of acquisition. Nigeria is estimated as of 2015 to have a housing deficit of approximately 17 million, and it is projected that about 59.5 trillion naira will be required to remedy the gap in the sector. Of all the challenges to the housing sector, limited access to finance stands as a major drawback requiring immediate intervention. The issue with finance can be traceable to underdevelopment in our mortgage industry, as it reportedly generated less than 200,000 transactions between 1960 and 2014. According to the World Bank report 2015, the contribution of mortgage financing to Nigeria's GDP is close to negligible, with real estate contributing less than 5% annual mortgage loans and advances at 0.5% of GDP.
Federal Mortgage Bank is the government agency for dealing with housing finance and access to credit for housing. So they work under the Ministry of Works and Housing. So what have they been doing? Between 2015 and 2019, they issued 5,301 mortgages over the 4 years. But specifically, between August and December, they issued 220 mortgages worth 1.9 billion. So all those who got mortgages got access to credit. Now, as you get access to credit, either to own a home or whatever, you are stepping away from poverty. You are taking your first step onto the ladder of prosperity.
There is an extremely low level of awareness of mortgage facilities, their benefits and services provided. Data across the 36 states and the FCT also indicates that people based in rural areas are less likely to consider use of mortgage facilities compared to those based in urban areas. This is both as a result of absence of awareness of the existence of such facilities and earning capacity of the rural populace. The above challenges notwithstanding, with targeted and specific reforms, mortgages can become a viable option to resolve the housing deficiency and ultimately improve the state of the economy. A starting point for this sort of development will include, as of necessity, amending the Land Use Act to adequately address the aforementioned challenges, facilitate ease of approval processes, and act as a pivot for development.
Welcome back. It is no longer news that the Federal High Court in Port Harcourt has ruled that states and not the Federal Inland Revenue Service should be collecting value-added tax and personal income tax. Following the milestone ruling, the Lagos State government has rightly expressed its readiness to begin the collection of VAT in accordance with the judgment. Tonight on Split Views, we examine the emerging issues emanating from this new VAT regime with a development analyst, Wale Oluwade. Stay with us. Welcome to the Split Views segments of our program, Abuja Dispatch. And on Split Views tonight, we take on a social commentator and public affairs analyst, Mr. Oluwale Oluwade. You are welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much, Boyega.
Value-added tax, VAT. What is it all about? And what difference does it make, when you consider it with other taxes that we have in the land?
Value-added tax is a kind of taxation introduced by various governments across the world on consumption or sales of both goods and services. And the rate differs in different countries. In Nigeria, it used to be 5%. I think the act was passed under former president, military president Babangida, and then became an act in this fourth republic under President Obasanjo. So it used to be 5%, but now it's 7.5%. And I think we're about the lowest, even in Africa, not to talk of other parts of the world. I think some countries like Ghana charge 15%, South Africa maybe 12%, some other countries. And it comes under different names or nomenclature. Some call it consumption tax or sales and goods tax and all of that. So it's a tax system that can be avoided. If you don't want to pay VAT or consumption tax, then watch what you consume, both in terms of services and the goods that you buy. So that's basically what VAT is all about.
Recently, the Federal High Court in Rivers State, Port Harcourt to be precise, gave a landmark judgment that VAT should be collected by the states rather than the FIRS, which is an agent of the federal government. What's your take on this judgment?
The judgment of the Federal High Court in Rivers State came not as a surprise to a few of us, including myself, because I think it has been long in coming. Don't forget, Lagos State, at the advent of this Fourth Republic, had sued the federal government on this same issue of VAT. And the matter went all the way to the Supreme Court. And rather than the Supreme Court adjudicating on the merits of the case, in my view, they took a political route, which is they said the Lagos State government shouldn't have, sued the federal government. Rather, it should have sued the agency that collects the VAT, which is the FIRS. So that way, the matter was held in abeyance until the Rivers State government now sued the FIRS at the Federal High Court. And it won. Now, why did I say it didn't come to some of us, including myself, as a surprise? There are let me give you a few reasons, or I call them issues in all of this. Number one, it's the issue of constitutionality. So the Constitution, that we practice, the 1999 Constitution, has what you call exclusive list and the concurrent list. Now, on the exclusive list, those are the items, that only the federal government can preside or execute over. Now, when it comes to the concurrent, these are items that both the federal and the 36 states can, can superintend over. But the issue of VAT is neither on the exclusive nor on the concurrent. It is on the residual list, which is what the Constitution says is totally within the purview of states. That is the Constitution. So, constitutionally, it is illegal for the federal government to have been collecting VAT. Now, even if I cast our minds back, to under military President Babangida that started this VAT, the man who headed the body that the former military president set up to, decide on the best way to approach the VAT process, then Mr. Ohiwere has come out in the last couple of weeks to speak on what happened, that it was intended to be a state affair, that it was the state that should have been collecting VAT. But for easy administration, the former military president Babangida approved that let them set up an agency to help the states collect the VAT on the basis of the states that contribute, whatever each state collects, but there will be a central agency to collect this and return the money back to the state. I hope you're following me, Boyega. So they set up that body, headed by Mr. Ohiwere, that okay, so you collect the states, you collect the VAT for all the states, and you return to each state what you have collected. Why? Because they were trying to avoid a situation where there will be multiplicity of state agencies collecting VAT. Because VAT administration is a little bit complex. It's not as straightforward as personal income tax or corporate tax or whatever, because you can have a manufacturer based in Lagos, but the goods and services are scattered all over Nigeria. So the issue of the risk of multiple taxation, on the consumers is so clear, it's very real. So that was the reason why they set up that FIRS then. But what happened, especially in this new dispensation, once these politicians came, the FIRS became a law, or the federal government took the issue of VAT to become an exclusive right to the federal government. Not only that, so constitutionally or legally, I've told you it is illegal. What the FIRS has been doing has been illegal. Number two is the issue of the system. What system of government are we operating? And that still follows from the Constitution. Nigeria is a federation, meaning we have a federal government, state government, and the local government system. So these are the three federating units. Now, I'm sure most Nigerians listening would agree with me that other parts of the world that practice a federal system of government, the real tier of government where development actually takes place is both the local government and the states. Now, if we are practicing a federal system of government, why should one body be collecting revenues for the three tiers of government? So what do you expect the state governments and the local governments to use to develop or to run their governments without taxes? Let's not even go into all the other issues of the items, because I told you there's the exclusive list on the Constitution and the concurrent list. Not mentioning the fact that of the 48 items on the exclusive list, the federal government have no reason to have those items. Issue of energy, because we only have one energy generating system, the national grid. States cannot legislate on power. States cannot legislate on mining. You have to come to Abuja, and we can go on and on. So the issue of systems, systemic issue, the kind of government we run is there. Thirdly, I can talk about equity. So currently what you have that led the Rivers State government to go to court and the Lagos State, way back, is that you have states like Lagos State and Rivers State generating so much money on consumption, on goods and services consumed, on VAT. And then it is pulled in by the FIRS. Now, the system of sharing is where the issue of inequity comes in. So, the Rivers State governor, Nyesom Wike, spoke and gave an example. Rivers State, maybe June this year also contributed 15 billion or thereabout to the VAT pool. But what did they get back from the FIRS? 4-point-something billion. Lagos State contributed about 40-something billion. What did they get back in return? 15 billion. But guess what? A state like Kano contributed 2.5 billion or 2.8 billion, and got exactly that amount back. So if I ask you, though you are the one that meant to be doing the asking, is that an equitable system? That is not fair.
But sir, recently, even after the judgment, you find out that the FRS has gone to court, to the higher court now, to challenge the judgment. And even the governors of the northern states are really against this judgment, saying that let the status quo be maintained. Why this level of opposition from the northern governors?
Exactly. I just told you, Boyega, a state like Kano, 44 local governments. 44 local governments. Lagos State has 20 local governments. Is that a just system? Lagos State has the highest population in Nigeria, 27 million people. You remember what it took for Lagos State to even be able to have those 27 LCDAs. It took a court pronouncement to say they are right, it is within their right to make local governments, but that those local governments have to be approved by the National Assembly. And it's been there since how many years now? So, how can Kano have 44 local governments and then they can only generate, I just told you, 2.8 billion in a month when Lagos State is doing 44 billion? You know, of course, we know the ravaging, the issue of insecurity that has largely, ravaged the northeast and now even the northwest, banditry and all of that. So economic activities in the northern part of Nigeria, is almost at zero level. Most of the states are only depending on FAC, federally allocated revenue, and majority of that is from oil receipts and VAT. So you can understand the feelings of governors from the northern states saying no, status quo, because they're going to lose out. But I think the earlier we confront this monster and deal with it, the better for us, because this feeding bottle, like I told you, Nigeria practices a federal system of government. So what we have been practicing is a feeding bottle democracy. It's a feeding bottle federalism. The earlier we do away with this and practice, even though I don't want to use the term true federalism, but that is the best way to describe it. What we're practicing is not federalism. We're practicing on paper federalism, but in real practice, what we're practicing is unitary system of government. Everything is centralized. The police is centralized. I mean, in the 21st century of today, how do you want to police Nigeria from Abuja? How do you have a commissioner of police in Lagos or in Bayelsa, in the creeks of Bayelsa, be taking instruction from a gentleman sitting in Abuja before he deals with the issue of criminals and crimes in his state? And that's how it is all over Nigeria.
So, as it were now, what should be the level of compliance? Should the state start collection of VAT, or should wait for the judgments of the higher courts to determine which level to flow with?
Yeah, the appeal court, when hearing preliminary notice filed by the FIRS, had ruled that status quo ante be maintained. I'm not a lawyer, but in my layman's understanding of what that means, meaning everybody, both parties, all parties involved, should return to the position prior to the case being filed. What was the position to the case being filed? FIRS was collecting VAT. Whether we like it or not, we're still a nation, that is governed by laws. So I would urge all the states, all the parties, FIRS and the rest, to maintain that. Governor Wike, Governor of Lagos State, Sanwo-Olu, who are the major protagonists in this, should respect the decision of the Court of Appeal. Let FIRS collect the VAT as they have been doing. It's only a matter of time before a definitive pronouncement will be made by the Court of Appeal. And if it goes either way, I'm sure either of them will still go to the Supreme Court, and then we'll see how it goes.
Mr. Olawale Oluwade is a social commentator and public affairs analyst here in Abuja. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you very much.
We're trying to say is that the inequity in access to vaccines is not acceptable. The fact that on the African continent, less than 4% of us have been vaccinated, whereas in the rich countries, close to 58% have been vaccinated, is not something that really is good for the world. Why? Because we have all these variants that are circulating. And if you don't vaccinate people, they'll just migrate from unvaccinated to the vaccinated. So what we're saying is, in order to solve this problem, we have to produce more vaccines, and then we have to distribute them equitably to parts of the world that don't have. And that's the narrative. At the WTO, what we're doing is actually working directly with the manufacturers. We're helping them monitor their supply chains, which are very complicated, to see what are the bottlenecks they have, what are the regulatory issues they face, how can we facilitate trade. Because moving supplies from one place to the other for the manufacturer is trade. How can we facilitate this for them? In return, we're asking them to deconcentrate production and go to those parts of the world where they have and invest. For example, on the African continent, we don't want to continue importing 99% of vaccines that we use or 90% of our pharmaceuticals, so they should invest.
That is how far time can permit us tonight on Abuja Dispatch. For further comments, information, and suggestions, you can reach us out on our various social media platforms. Thank you for joining us tonight on Abuja Dispatch. A week from now, we bring you another refreshing package. Same time, same station. Adegboyega Arogbodo is my name. Have a good night.